Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Lewisboro, July 10th, 2023 Town Board meeting. For those here in the room, there's an exit towards the front of the building and an exit to the rear of the building. And if you will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with public comments. Anyone here in the room? Larry.
Good evening. My name is Larry Mango. I'm a resident of South Salem, New York, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I wanted to take this opportunity to applaud the town supervisor and the town council and everyone involved in taking the initiative and being awarded the $1.426 million Bridge New York grant to replace the Oskalita Road culvert. I believe this will go a long way in helping to sustain and improve the infrastructure for the town of Lewisboro. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Glenn?
Hi, Glenn DeFaber, Cross River. I hope I can be as pleasant as Mr. Mandel. Listening to the board struggle with previous meeting with Sustainable Westchester's power program, which is having difficulty providing competitive pricing this year, even with a non-green energy component, I wondered why not just let residents keep the choice they have under the state's current system, which provides NISEC as a default supplier with numerous ESCOs as alternative mixed and green suppliers. Westchester Power can do the research and educate the residents on the choices they have. I've been doing this since 1999, picking what I thought was the best and saved money over both NISEC and Sustainable Westchester. I have never renewed with the same supplier when the original contract was over. So much for the promise Dan made years ago that his program would help seniors and others who did not have the time to do their own research. This year, I did some more research of my own and looked at Sustainable Westchester's most recent filed IRS Form 990 for the year 2021. I think this board should do research and educate our residents on some of the things that I found. While it is true the organization's board of directors is made up of current or former politicians from our local towns and municipalities who are unpaid. However, Dan received compensation as program director of Westchester Power of $126,000. Dan stated at the last meeting, if you make the program opt-in and not enough people join, there would be no program. Your decision is weighing the best interests of the community against the best interests of your colleague and running mate. For several years, Sustainable Westchester had an interim executive director making around $125,000. In March 2021, Nina Orville, who had been a vendor to the organization under the name Abundant Efficiencies LLC, became executive director and was paid $438,652 for just 10 months of service. This is for an organization of only $2.2 million in revenue. Didn't the head of the Red Cross get in trouble for a salary of that size? The 990 also shows total salaries of $1.479 million and over $128,000 for advertising and $248,000 for outreach, none of which is itemized. A fraction of these costs could have been paid for research and outreach to the community with these recommendations on which ESCO to choose under the existing system set up by our state government. But it seems there are too many mouths to feed. Anyone interested in the IRS Form 990, they can email me at glendfaber@gmail.com. Glenn has 2 N's. 15 seconds. This setup with Dan's company is why we need an independent ethics board. Having the town attorney render an opinion on ethics is unethical in that he is paid by the town board. How many people bite the hand that feed them? Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Jennifer?
Good evening, Jennifer Mayetta Steering. I'm a resident of Mark Mead Road in Cross River, New York. I'm voicing my concern regarding the very quick moving improvements to the main intersection of Lewisboro at 121 and Route 35. Baccio, it's my understanding, because I have not received any formal notification from anyone in the town or any of the Baccio people, that Baccio is seeking to purchase, or they've already purchased a piece of property and seeking to convert it to a commercial piece of property for parking spaces to support their current restaurant. There's another conjoined piece of property that's a residential lot that currently houses their septic system and their well, which is illegal because it's on a residential piece of property supporting a commercial piece of property. That's not permitted under the law. This intersection has been taxed over time. It has been increasing in volume because it's the only east-west roadway. All of the intersection road driveways are old. They were probably okay back 50 years ago, but today they're not okay. They're not under the rule of law at this point. When you turn into Baccio, you're creating a hazard at the intersection. When you're turning into North Salem Road, you're creating a hazard. We already have issues with that intersection. During the school year, people turning into North Salem Road, making U-turns in the middle of the roadway so that they can avoid the traffic light. People going westbound, turning left into North Salem Road to go to Baccio. They cause a cluster in the intersection because there's no left turn lane. The schools cause a large backup at that intersection. They cause a backup on 121. It backs up into our street. My street, we only have one way out, and that's through North Salem Road to the traffic light. The only other possible way is to go all the way down to the end, go east of the traffic light to the end of Mark Mead Road and make a left again. It's causing a big problem for us. Kids walk to school. It's a safety issue. People can't cross that intersection in a safe manner. And the board is allowing it. The town is allowing this intersection to continue to grow in volume. The new restaurant or cafe and yoga studio and whatever didn't hear a word about it, even though it's on my intersection. It's in my street. It's in my area. Didn't hear anything about it. But now we find out that that's going in. It's going to cause further issues on North Salem Road because people will be turning in there early in the morning to get their coffee. They're going to be making U-turns in the middle of the road, and kids that are walking to school are at risk. I suggest strongly that the board conduct a thorough, not just a basic traffic study of that intersection, but a thorough study of that intersection, along with all the driveways, the ins and outs, the one ways, the both ways. People are coming out of Baccio's parking lot at a high rate of speed, even though there's a stop sign there, and they're just barreling into the roadway, almost hitting people. I can attest to the fact that I've almost been hit many times myself. And people that are walking are going to have a problem. Our police force does not have the number of people needed to support that intersection the way it is right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else here? On Zoom?
Yes. Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
Good evening. I just want to applaud Glenn DeFaber for stating what he stated and jumping off and talking about this ethics board. I don't know why our town supervisor, Tony, Mr. Sclaren, Mary Shaw, and Dan Welsh are afraid to put this on the agenda. I don't know how things get on the agenda. It's been brought up at least 3 times from Councilwoman Brendo. It's an ethics code that she stated that she worked on with the attorney and did a lot of work on. She asked for feedback. I've listened to every meeting beginning to end. There's been no feedback that I've heard unless it's private. And it's not on the agenda. And I don't know if it goes hand in hand with people being afraid that they're going to be the first complaint on the ethics committee. I have no clue. I don't even know if the 2 guys that are on the ethics committee for years and years are still interested in being on it. I would like to know why it takes so long to get something on the agenda. This agenda tonight looks pretty empty to me. It would have been a great night to put it on. I think it's really a travesty that we have to now go to the county to file an ethics complaint and we can't take care of it in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Jim O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Jim O'Connor, Vista. I just want to send out kudos to Glenn DeFaber. I've been preaching about this for 2 years now, about Dan, the con man, and lack of ethics on this board. With Mary Shaw, I actually spoke to her several months ago in regards to what Dan does and how unethical it is to promote his company. And I'm sorry, Mary, that I didn't get back the information, but Glenn actually did a great job. I have additional information that I will supply to the board and also bring you updated on what Dan does. He literally works 40 hours one whole year and makes over $120,000. And it seems like that he gets promoted or he makes more money every time the town takes some sort of initiative on his plan. So I hope, praying that this ethics board comes into fruition, because I really think that we have to look at things that are going on in this town, especially the money that Dan has been making. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jim. Dean Travelino, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm still calling from exile, but glad to be able to participate in this meeting. What I'd like to comment on is the I guess you're covering sidewalks at this evening's meeting. I want to comment a little bit on the sidewalks. At your last meeting, it seemed like, at the last meeting, it seemed like there started to become a point where sidewalks were being pitted against safe roads or sidewalks and bike paths. And I would hope that we wouldn't have to do that. I think everyone would support sidewalks in the appropriate places, and bicycle paths would also be great, but I don't think we need to pit one against the other. One thing I will want to mention in support of fixing our roads is we have a plan, a concrete plan called the Cornell study that shows where we can keep patching roads and maintaining them, and then work on repaving, reclamation on certain roads. The last time I checked, I thought we had about 88 miles of roads, maybe a little bit more. And as Peter Rippinger said at one of the budget meetings earlier this year, when I was still in town, he mentioned the fact that we are supposed to be paving 9 miles a year, and we're only paving 2. It seems like we're slipping backwards and creating what I could call a ticking financial time bomb. What I'd like to see, and in terms of the sidewalks and paths, it's a great idea, but we need to flesh out location, who's going first, because obviously people like it where it's going to be in their area. From what I heard at the last meeting, drainage work, more importantly, to make a good, safe bike path. There'll probably be some eminent domain and maybe other compensation, just voluntary compensation and agreements with homeowners. What I heard last meeting was more of a wish list rather than any concrete plans. But again, I'm not going to put one against the other, sidewalk versus roads. Let's look at it as a team. Now, I heard a good argument a few people made, maybe Dan and Mary, that this authorization to borrow is almost like a sign of good faith. Well, we're so far behind in roads. Maybe that would be a good sign of good faith too, and maybe put up for a vote a $4 million bond, half for sidewalks and half for roads. Now, one last thing, if I could say, I know that Dan keeps saying that capitalizing roads and borrowing for them as a capital expenditure may be good accounting, but it's not good management. That's just not true. That's not what the Office of the State Controller thinks. If anyone wants to look at their report on this and how you put into your budget certain maintenance items and salt and overtime and maybe pothole repair, edge repair, but reclamation, repaving of roads, that's normally by, I think, most any town, borrowed for as an investment in the future, amortized over 15 years. If you like that controller's report, I posted it on Citizens of Lewisboro, but I can email it to anybody. Thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean. Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
How is that?
That's fine.
Okay, I hope I make a little sense. I'm a little laid up right now with knee surgery. I don't necessarily have a question, but rather a comment. I see that the safe pedestrian bond is on for tonight, but I didn't see any supporting documentation on the agenda in reference to that. I do remember seeing the bond resolution on another site, and I will say again, I just want to reiterate, my concern is in the past, we were talking about, not us, not me, but people putting this together, talking about infrastructure changes for sidewalks, bike paths, most of which are going to be affiliated with state roads. You know how I feel about that. I think the state should be doing state roads and not us. We have many, many other concerns in this town that if we're going to float a $2 million bond, the money should go towards that. I'm also concerned with the resolution is that it's very vague. It doesn't even necessarily say it will go for that. It says it is not limited to that. And again, I think that's poor fiscal management to put a bond out there and say, we want to do this, but we may use it for something else, but we don't have any information. That's another concern. I think anytime any group wants to put a bond out there, it should be a very exact document stating what it's going to address and what the costs are for each of those items. We talk a lot about a lot of groups that are involved in this. And again, kudos to those groups. We couldn't do without these volunteer groups, but I do know, for example, for Golden's Bridge, that Golden's Bridge is a much bigger hamlet than just that small little epicenter that the Golden's Bridge hamlet covers. So, they may be wanting sidewalks and safe crosswalks or whatever in their little area, but everybody in this town is paying for that, including other residents of Golden's Bridge who don't live over there and don't necessarily feel the necessity for crosswalks or lights. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Barbara. Carol Sternak, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Carol Cernak, Farvey Farm, South Salem, New York. I'd just like to keep it short and sweet. I agree with what everybody said on Zoom tonight, all the different conversations and the topics. And I think, we need to figure out a path forward. Spending money before you build your infrastructure is not the right thing to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. That's it, honey.
That's it. Okay. Thanks, Janet. Okay, move on to communications. So last week I received, this was a press release by our governor where she announced the award of more than $516 million in enhanced assistance for 141 local governments to rehabilitate and replace bridges and culverts while supporting resiliency and sustainability in every region of the state. This funding provided through the state's Bridge New York initiative is aimed at helping local governments across the state harden their existing infrastructure while boosting the resiliency of bridges and culverts in the state. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's online. We're actually expecting a more formal letter from New York State DOT on this. But if you look at the link, it's on the state website. It does have Lewisboro listed as one of the communities receiving $1.426 million for the replacement of the Oskalita Road culvert in Westchester County. So just to give a little background, this was back in October of last year when we were reviewing budgets. We actually had a line item for a culvert replacement for Oskalita Road. And I decided after consulting with our highway superintendent that we should remove it from the budget and look at funding opportunities that were gonna be forthcoming potentially. And subsequently in November, I received a letter from the Department of Transportation announcing the Bridge New York program. So we decided, okay, let's give that a shot. And I'd like to thank Jan Anderson, who's our planning board chair, but even prior to us receiving that grant, she had heard the town board meeting where we took that out of the budget and we were going to seek grant money to pay for the work. And she offered to help us with whatever grant application we needed to work on. So we did receive the notice about the Bridge New York program, which included projects with a minimum of $100,000 up to $1.5 million. So we actually are at the top of that spectrum. With the work with Janet spearheading the effort, Joe Tremelli providing the engineering support. He's with Kellard Sessions, and with my chief of staff, Mary Hafter. I let the three of them run with this, and lo and behold, we got the grant. We were expecting the announcement back in March. It didn't come until last week, but we're very excited about that, and very excited to get this project off the ground. So of course, there's going to be some steps that need to be taken. We have to enter into a grant agreement with the state, and so I'm waiting for feedback and information on that schedule. So kudos to the team for doing this, and big shout out to Jen Anderson, who took the lead and did a fabulous job in piecing this together. So thank you, Jen. So that's the one piece of communication that I had.
That'll pay for that project pretty much in its entirety, right?
It will, yes, absolutely. Now the other, well, I'll wait till polling of the board afterwards for this next announcement, but yeah, that's what I have for communications. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. So motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of June 26th.
So moved.
And the building report and the police department report.
And seconded.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
So next we jump to new business, which is we have three renewals of the term of the agreements we have with the school district. And I'll just pull them out here. So one of them is for the first one is for the facilities use. So this is the basically the terms of the agreement does not change with the exception of the actual the term itself, but the other points in the agreement have not been altered.
The
So this is just a
substantive
renewal.
provisions are the same. It's just a new
Correct.
term for the agreement.
Yes.
From the facilities, that would be Lewisboro Elementary School.
No. This is separate from the rental of the school building for town offices. This is the exchange of facilities that we have where the school is allowed to use our facilities, our parks, and we're allowed to use their facilities for meetings, et cetera. And so there's no monies exchange with that agreement. So I guess I have to do three motions here. Is that correct, Jen? Do three, one for each?
Yeah, well, keep the question.
Mm-hmm.
Weren't they going to put all these into one master?
So
agreement?
for the rental of the office space, that's what they're working on. So that's why we haven't received, that's the fourth agreement we have with them. So
They're not gonna be combined into one.
they are, but we haven't received it yet.
So you're gonna.
So that's a separate agreement from these three.
So they're
And basically
combining
they're
all of them.
combining the amendments to that initial agreement for the town offices.
So tonight we're approving the amendments. The amendments will be attached to the lease agreement for the.
No, these are amendments to these three agreements.
Okay.
There's the total of 4 agreements.
Okay, so it's a total of 4 agreements. I think the question was, are they all going to be combined into
No.
one? Okay, that was the question.
Right. I thought you were referring to the other agreement for that. Okay.
About all
Four.
all four becoming one master.
Right.
so we're not gonna do that.
So we're not, yeah.
So three now and one.
It's three down and one later that will combine all the amendments related to that one,
There will not be one agreement. They will still remain as
separate.
Separate.
4 separate agreements,
amendments.
So
4
then,
separate agreements.
to
yeah.
answer your question, then yes, you should do them individually, just to be
Correct.
clear that there's no, what
Okay.
things are changing. So on facilities,
Right.
everything's the same except for the term.
Right, exactly.
The terms match in each of these three agreements? The new
No,
terms match up or?
No.
Then we have, yeah, we should do it. So
two of them do. I think the third one is a different term,
just
different term. So,
we just give the term and then we'll make a motion on each of them. The facilities use
Okay.
agreement, the term on that one with the new agreement is whatever, and then salt. fuel and
right. So, and the salt fuel, let me explain that one. That's the one where they have access to our salt. We have access to their fuel, and there is a surcharge that they charge us for the salt that we use. We pay their cost plus $2 per ton.
They reach essentially reciprocal use agreements.
Correct. And on the fuel side, we pay their fuel cost together with 10 cents, which represents the service fee that they're charged.
Okay, so what's the term for the new facilities use?
Till August of 2024.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? In favor? Aye. So motion to approve the salt fuel
The term of that
term?
one. is-
Is $2 or $2 in additional,
No,
Time.
the time frame.
First one's August till August of 2024.
This one is till June 30th, 2024.
Okay, so move.
discussion
Second.
or second discussion, all in favor? Aye. And the third is for the bus rental.
I move that we authorize the signing of the bus rental amendment by the supervisor.
And that term is, Andrew?
Until August
August
31st, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So I'm abstaining, Janet, from all these three since I have to sign.
So you
Right.
abstain from them? Is that what you do?
Correct.
Because we're authorizing
Because-
you to
Yeah,
sign.
yeah.
Because he has to sign them.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so that takes care of that. We have. One second.
This is what you put on the chairs.
Oh. You want to get the wrong one. Yeah, so we're, all right, so next we have, yeah, I went in reverse order because I got a different version. So old business discussion of the proposed pedestrian improvements, sidewalks, crosswalks, et cetera. So opportunity for the board to, and then just to correct the statement that was made by Barbara, we are not reviewing or approving the bond resolution. That was included in the prior meeting. This is just a continued discussion. I do have a presentation that will share, and I think we'll start with that presentation first, which may answer some of the questions that have popped up. Let's see here.
You putting it behind us or in front of us?
Yeah, it's going to be. Sean, can we turn this screen on? Oh, no? Okay, so it's, you can,
Yeah.
he has it, and then you guys can look out.
I have no internet on my.
No, just
Come
online.
on.
So let me open up that file. It's this one
Kind of like
here.
sitting in the front row at the movie theater.
You know,
Yeah.
the cheap seats now.
Sure, this gets formatted. There it is.
Yeah, that's good. You got it, Tony.
No, but it's not. I'm trying to get it to share on Zoom.
Looks pretty on the screen behind you.
I know it does, yeah. I can't, hold on, let me just do this.
I'm not gonna have it.
Share screen. Okay, I will. Sure. Okay, is that good? There, oh, good. Okay, can you see that on Zoom, Janet?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll start. Anyone?
Yeah, let me go ahead and jump in. And the point here is we're lining ourselves up to address the resolution for this bond for bike and pedestrian infrastructure upgrades. But due to the kind of weirdness of the state electoral schedule and all that, we can't do that any earlier than next session. But we wanted to kind of continue to fill in some of the context for this as we get to that point. So go ahead to the first slide, if you would. And this is just a couple of slides to kind of demonstrate that this has been something that's been in the works for a long time, that Lewisboro actually has a very long and arduous history around trying to make these improvements, starting at least in my memory back as far as 2008. We submitted a big grant package. I think it was like $5 million for all kinds of upgrades in Cross River or bike paths along the state highway. And at that point, the idea was to do a bike trail through to Michelle Estates. That became the John Jay Trail, cross-country trail eventually. But so that was kind of, we get that kicked off there. Not long after that, Jonathan, you're in the audience, we started working in Golden Bridge together, and Tony, and brainstorming and trying to figure out how to get things going there. We managed to get DOT to come down and go around with us. We had our town engineer helped us to try to scope things out, and we ended up submitting a grant package there in 2010. At the time, it's called the TCSP program, but it was basically to support those same type of upgrades. We didn't succeed there. A year after that, we instituted the first complete streets policy in Westchester County. This is basically a declaration by the town that we recognize that our streets should be made accessible and safe for all users, not just the cars and trucks that ply them. So that was a nice move forward, and actually inspired others in Westchester County to follow with similar policies. Not long after that, we tried again for Golden Bridge with basically the same package. We had consulted with them, what we do to do it better, upgraded it, submitted it, again, didn't win. That same period, we managed to secure some support from the county to do some complete streets studies. The first one was for the John Jay Middle School nominally, but it included a lot of the surrounding Cross River area, and had the assistance of a professional planner, and we did kind of input sessions and things like that. So that document is there and is one of the key source documents that we can refer to as we kind of put our ideas together. And then after that, we had the Golden Bridge Complete Streets study, which was a similar exercise, and basically took a lot of the concepts that we had started to develop and refine those. And we also started talking to Somers actually around that time about the rail trail and the possibility of making connections to Somers and improving that area through that very exciting concept, because there was the possibility of stringing that all the way over to the North County Trail. You go to the next page, right? In 2014, then we took all of this and kind of put it together with a narrative that made it hang together and created what we call the bike and pedestrian master plan addendum. And so it actually became on passing, it became a part of the town's master plan. So all these types of upgrades that we're talking about are actually a part of the town's master plan today. And they'll no doubt be a part of, in one form or another, in the new document that will be generated. Continue to work on the DOT together with now the new Golden Bridge Hamlet organization. You know, more meetings down in the town and more community sessions. Work with them to try and get some progress and get that little Anderson Road cut through, approved by as a small project there. We held a Hamlet development meeting where we did kind of brainstorming and brought people together to kind of envision where we can go with a lot of bike and pedestrian stuff there. Started dialogue with the DOT for upgrades to the Cross River intersection. We provided all these base documents that we had worked on over the years to them for that. About 2016, we had a lot of discussions on the pedestrian safety side of things with the medium of the old Golden's Bridge road there, both Old Golden's Bridge, Bedford Road, and the old town property down there. Tried again for the state grants for Golden's Bridge, 2016, once again, did not secure that. 2018, we formed the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, figuring all these things should have a home in town for it's kind of institutional memory and focus. That committee has worked since then to try and raise the profile of these things and do small projects. I just noted some of the things that they've put forth are again on the radar right now. And after that, we've had more dialogue with the DOT. Tony organized a lot of that, visiting the 3 Hamlet centers, talking about crosswalks in Cross River. And there's a lot more than that, but I thought it would be useful to lay this out, because sometimes it seems if you're only dipping into the subject in a given meeting, you don't realize this has been an ongoing thing for a long time. If we go to the next slides, and then also as part of contextualizing and giving people a little taste of what has been talked about, we'll look at a couple of the ideas, but I want to emphasize here, I know there's a tendency in this case to want to say, oh, we should treat this like many other projects and, get it all pinned down and get the exact project figured out first, designed, engineering design done, priced out, get that total, and then go out for a bond. That's maybe a more typical process. In this case, we're using this bonding to drive the community engagement on this, and to use that to have a concrete way to bring some of these projects that we've already talked about for a long time to fruition, knowing that we have the ability to do it, giving ourselves the authority through this bond referendum. So again, though, just as by way of sort of sharing some of the things that we've talked about, and again, Jonathan will be very familiar with these drawings and a dozen other versions of it, but certainly in Golden's Bridge, everybody knows that intersection there, like so many of them in town, was originally not really designed with pedestrians in mind. And so from the very beginning, it was recognized that there was a need for crosswalks to go across the North Street 138 intersection there, and to provide for safe access to and from the train station. And then even we have a number of people who are actually walking down 138 from whether it be the Colony or Fairmont, and regularly going to the train station there And the vision includes trying to provide safe passage for them. And I should say conceptually, a lot of the, the sort of low hanging fruit ideas come out of the basic concept that if you live a quarter mile or a half mile from a key civic node, a train station or a school or a shopping center, and you can't walk there, that's kind of ridiculous, right? You should be able to just walk out your door and walk these places and not have to get in your car to kind of defend yourself and get there, So you'll see that most of the ideas that we're talking about these days are, around these nodes. Let's go to the next one. I guess that's basically, okay.
That's what we were just discussing.
Yeah, must have left that one out. So go to the next one there. And I mentioned the old bridge in Golden's Bridge. This is another one of the sort of stretch goals, perhaps, but it's already been started off in a sense through the work on the walking trail that goes around the old alongside the Muscoot on the old Schoolhouse Road. And a lot of this activity came out of those local visioning sessions that we had back in the days, and some of the old timers, remember Mr. Catone, where they used to be telling us stories about the old Schoolhouse Road there and the train line. And we all picked up on that, and it was great that we were able to get the DEP's support to complete that trail. But we have that bridge is sitting there. If we were able to fix that up and complete that connection, this would be an amazing feature for the hamlet of Golden's Bridge. So just some of the sort of concepts that are out there for Golden's Bridge. The next one here, this is a terrible slide, but I had to put it in because this is a little video, terrible quality video that I did back 15 years ago of a person trying to cross the street in Cross River. And if you watch it, it's an incredibly harrowing thing. This person kind of, ducks out into traffic and then backs up again. And it's very representative what's going on in that intersection, as we heard, is getting exacerbated by the additional activity that's going on there. And it's clear again that this is an intersection that was never anticipated actual human beings being part of the activity there. And so basically in any direction you look, it needs crosswalks and push buttons. You're not going to have a regular pedestrian timing there. Probably you're going to push buttons because it's true that it's not like every minute of the day that there's people wanting to cross. But when you do, you want to cross. And so let's move to the next slide. And this is just a shot from that very earliest grant again that I mentioned, and a lot of interesting concepts. The Cross River is not far from the town park, actually. If you look at it, and there's ways that you can conceive of getting over there and basically connecting the population centers in Cross River to be able to, think of a kid being able to jump on their bike and ride, less than a mile to get to the town park. That would be a great thing. So again, just an exciting concept there. And then in Vista, those folks are a little later to this work than some others, but they've caught up real fast, and they have amazing activities going on where they've actually themselves engaged a planning firm and started to work on some really exciting concepts there. Overall, they want to see that 123 eventually become their main street. Right, that's their main street there, and unfortunately, it's a state road, but they've got a lot of civic assets on that road, and they'd love to be able to tie that all the way out from the New Canaan border up to the intersection at Elmwood Road. Obviously, that's not going to be done in one fell swoop, but some great concepts there. Even I had to throw their rotary in there for the Elmwood intersection. I think that's definitely a stretch, but I love the fact that they're letting themselves go there and those are actually great safety improvements if you can get those going there. And the next slide just shows, there's definitely some sort of smaller bites you can take from this that would get things kicked off, whether it be just that short length from Oak Ridge to Glen Drive is not very far at all. And it looks like the right of ways are not impossible. That would connect essentially that whole kind of Elmwood area to Oak Ridge. So I have a lot of confidence that the folks there will be able to take the resources that they could get out of this program and really kick things off and get some momentum with that.
And just that this drawing here shows the, that's a bus shelter with the crosswalk, proposed crosswalk. And the idea when we met with the Vista folks was to run a sidewalk from this side here, not the shelter side, up to the Vista Restaurant to Glen Drive.
Yeah.
And then
There's some sight line issues if you cross too early and things like that.
It's speaking as someone who's walked that section on a regular basis, it's very dangerous and you have to be very alert. And
fast.
The Vista Hamlet Stewardship Council has done a lot of planning and investment in these plans. And we hope that it comes to fruition. There are a lot of people who live in Vista who want to make it a place where not only can you enjoy walking, but a destination for businesses as well. This will help make it possible for more businesses to find customers.
Yeah, I think it's pretty universally found that these kind of upgrades generally bring the whole level of these, town centers up and are a boon to businesses. And the last slide, just to remind, the funds are for constructing these things and the associated. So that would include, you obviously need to do design work and planning, or there could be, right of ways that you want to obtain, getting help for permitting, whatever. So the language is meant to encompass that, and that's really, I think, the context that I wanted to lay out for people as we go into this. Again, the designs and the ideas that we show here are not meant to be like, that's it, that's what's going to happen. We really are excited about bringing the community organizations to bear on this so that they can help prioritize and really be a part of kicking these things off.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anyone have any questions or anything to add? The result of that presentation?
First. Yeah. So I had the opportunity to take a walk with Dan last summer towards the old train bridge in Golden's Bridge and get to hear firsthand from him the vision that has grown over a significant amount of time. I've spent a great deal of time talking with my neighbors in Vista, where I live on that side of town. And they, in a very short period of time, have put together a pretty fabulous vision for that part of town. We've heard some discussion tonight about the intersection of 123 and 121, which is 35, sorry, and 121 there, and significant concerns, knowing that a new coffee business is going to draw the high school students, more than just going to school. They're going to want to cross over and probably, frequent that business as well. And we have to be concerned with the amount of foot traffic going back and forth, with the additional car traffic that will be going back and forth and turning at that intersection. And crosswalks, obviously, and safety are a huge part of all of these things. All of them are incredibly wonderful ideas. All of them are really great visions. As I said last time, it's not a concern. It's just that I think that passing or putting a bond resolution on for November at this point in time is premature. I feel like we're still putting the cart before the horse, not because we don't have great ideas that have been percolating and are starting to grow. That's not the issue. The issue is that we're years away from even step one of physically starting the construction. We are in the midst of a great project in the master plan, and we have engaged the community in that, a great deal of the community in that, with a vision, and we are almost there, but we're not going to be asked to adopt any proposed master plan until 2024. And then from there, once that's in place and adopted, then we can move forward. And we're not going to see anything real to start planning for until probably the beginning of 2025. There would be ideas to, you know, what do we have eminent domain? Do we have right of ways? There are state roads involved. There's, you know, traffic studies that need to be done. There's safety studies that need to be done. All these things need to be done before we even go towards putting in a sidewalk. And so for me, although I look forward to all of these ideas coming to fruition, I think we're putting the cart before the horse, number one. Number two, the amount of money that we're bonding for at this point in time is small in comparison to what we need. Three, where it comes to the roads in the town of Lewisboro, we know what we need. We know what we need to spend. That's something that we can spend money on tomorrow and see a difference tomorrow. If we were to bond for roads or put it up for a referendum to bond for roads in November. So, you know, there's that. And there's one more thing. There was one more thing. I don't remember what it was. It'll come back to me. So I just think, you know, at this point, if we're going to bond for anything, we've got to include roads in it, not just sidewalks. And I think that we're looking at an insufficient amount of money to begin with there. And I think that it would have been helpful as a town board member to hear from bond counsel as to why it would be financially feasible for our town at this moment in time to bond for this amount of money this year in 2023, as opposed to what the financial benefits would be to wait or not to wait. I think that's an important piece of this decision as well.
I'm just, you were saying it's premature, and I guess my question, Andrew, why do you think it's premature if, based upon how the process is set up, this is something where there's enabling legislation, which then goes to the voters in November, make the decision whether or not we should do this.
Right.
And then there's no obligation to spend anything at any time certain.
That's correct.
To have this, so why is it premature to have that if no money is spent until it's ready?
So
And it's
what
not,
what is the
doesn't move
financial-
forward unless it's approved by a majority of the voters.
What is the financial benefit to borrowing money and holding on to it for 3 to 5 years as opposed to waiting to borrow it when we ultimately need it and have a better idea of how much we're going to need?
Well, it's not holding on to it, it's getting it ready.
We're not borrowing it. We're borrowing.
We're bonding for it.
We're not going to bond, and we're getting the authorization to bond,
Yes.
but we don't have to go forward right
So
away.
that services do not get incurred right away. It's only when we tap into the fund. So if we want to do any kind of engineering work, let's say it costs, I don't know, $200,000 to do some engineering work for Vista. Then we have the money available. And at that point, you start incurring that service.
Right, and again, we're not going to be looking to do that for another 3 to 5 years. And we have to get past adopting our new master plan or updated master plan. We have to go through the process of listening to how and if we're going to change our zoning laws in the town to accommodate the vision that the master plan is going to create. And then with all these different projects, we have to start prioritizing which ones are going to go first, and the engineering studies. We're not going to be doing anything, physically doing anything for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't see the benefit to putting this up to a vote this November versus next November.
I don't think that's accurate at all. Like you said yourself, we're going to have to do studies, look at right of ways and things like that. We get surveyors in. So there's some initial costs
Some
to,
costs.
to even
Absolutely.
be able to do
But
this.
we're not gonna finish
There's
the
no-
master plan until the end of next
Why-
year.
I disagree that you have to wait until the master plan is done and then the zoning is all done. Because these projects, as you said yourself, this is not some kind of huge, like, okay, we're changing the whole face of the town here. Gonna identify key low-hanging fruit, places where there's, gross safety issues that we already know about. And there's plenty of stuff that falls into that category, which absolutely need to be done. Everybody knows that and doesn't have to wait for it to be fit into some larger plan.
And if I, listen, I love all these ideas. I support all these ideas but I also think that we're not looking, if we're going to do something like this, that we need to include in it then money for the adjacent roads. If you're gonna start engineering studies for sidewalks and bicycle paths, then we're looking at, look at Main Street over here. We know what needs to be done there. We know how much that's gonna cost, but we're not looking to bond for money for that right now.
So
That's something that's tangible that we can fix technically tomorrow by bonding for it. This is something that we're looking at in the future that I want to see happen. So I want to be clear to everybody out there. I'm not against these projects I look forward to the opportunity to walk up 123 and walk all the way to the corner of East Street. I look forward to walking across that bridge or riding my bicycle across that. I think that's a fabulous idea. I totally love that idea.
So,
But I think that if we're gonna bond, and I don't want to do, like Dean Travelino said earlier, this isn't an either or type of thing. I think that if we're gonna be bonding, then it should also incorporate roads into it. And it should be a bigger vision than just a sidewalk or a bicycle path. We have to look at those things in connection with the roads. And again, we know what needs to be done on the roads.
And you said adjacent roads.
Well, yeah, the roads,
So these projects are all on state roads, the ones that we
For the
already
most-
highlighted.
For the most
We-
part.
Yeah. we're not
which
gonna
I
pay
also
state
have,
roads.
then that's, and then we're also gonna be dealing with the state, which God knows that elongates the process even more. But Main Street needs to be paved, and some of the roads that our residents live on need to be paved, and we don't have any money for that. So why aren't we including in this bond amount money to fix our roads, which can be done?
We can have those discussions about bonding for roads or not bonding for, but paving those roads, but that can be a separate discussion. It's a very, very different project and, different timelines and all the rest of that, I think. So separate issue. And the handling of the funds, as I said, this is a program that's going to be engaging the
Andrew, don't you think something like this is a
residents, like that.
potential economic catalyst for the businesses in each of the hamlet centers? That by taking this step, subject to voter approval, and also not spending $1 until such time as something is ready to proceed forward in the way that it needs to be, don't you, when you accept that it's a potential economic catalyst to the hamlet center?
Not until the actual projects commence. I don't see it being a catalyst today to increase business or increase traffic or anything to those areas until you actually see something being done. And again, I don't see the financial benefit to this these questions for bond council. I don't see the financial benefit to doing it this year versus next
The
year.
bond council is not going to be able to tell you that because they're not going to be able to, tell you with certainty what the rates are going to be. And we're not borrowing this year.
The answer to the question, say somebody like Borough Cafe was coming into Crossroad, hopefully they'll be, opening up imminently. Having
I didn't hear the first part of that.
Borough Cafe,
Oh.
something like Borough Cafe.
Mhm.
Having Borough Cafe, for example, having an opportunity to be connected to other parts of Cross River, isn't that an economic catalyst for a new business that's coming in? Isn't this a pro-business opportunity for our hamlet centers?
Yeah, but I'm not disputing the fact that sidewalks and crosswalks are gonna help our hamlet centers. That's not, I'm just saying, I think we're premature right now to be doing this, and we need to see the master plan come to fruition, have the blueprint, and then plan for that. I don't think 2.1 million is gonna be sufficient, to be quite honest with you.
If if the, if the DOT approved tomorrow and we had the money, we could start work on basic crosswalks, push button light timings on that intersection. And that would be a vast improvement. And if those guys open without this stuff, we all are a little bit concerned
Yes, I had-
that,
Is there not a state study that's going to be taking place on the intersection of 35 and
Yes.
121?
So the request is in for them to do that, but they haven't scheduled it yet.
Is there
But
something we can do to get them tired of the sound of our voice and make sure
Yeah,
that
so-
we motivate them to do it sooner than later?
so I explained to them that, and we had this, I had a call with them. maybe
Them being the
through
state or them being
the state, the
owners?
DOT.
Okay,
DOT. And I mentioned that Baccio, for example, they're putting in a sidewalk, right? They're gonna have a crosswalk on the property that Jennifer mentioned across the street. So people can safely walk across. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the way the traffic
That's-
flows, that's not gonna,
And that's in
Safe.
front of the planning board,
Yeah.
but there's a crosswalk there. I'm sure it's gonna have some signaling. There's a crosswalk on 121, taking kids from the school to AP Fields. So they're gonna have a crosswalk, and then that's gonna lead to a sidewalk, because in order to have a sidewalk, you need from DOT's perspective, you can't just have a sidewalk, you gotta have a destination that crosswalk will connect you to.
right, can't be a
So you gotta have a
sidewalk.
sidewalk, right, so you have the Baccio sidewalk potentially going to the corner. And right now it's going just to the front entrance of the building. But then once you have that, DOT said, that's great, that's a good start. Now we have one end of that crosswalk. Now you need another path, for example, where Cross River Wines is. And it could be as simple as a path down to the front of the store, or a sidewalk in front of the property adjacent to, parallel to 121. And then you can go to Orchard Square, maybe get a sidewalk in front of that section, connecting up to close to the where the bank is and the high school property. So that's where kids are crossing to get to Bluebird or Cameron's, and there would be another crosswalk there potentially. So I've had these discussions with DOT. They had a bunch of people on the call, and we had visuals, and so those discussions are underway, especially with the paving, which I have an update on. But with the paving, I spoke to the regional director of DOT today, just this afternoon, and so I'm trying to get him to apply some pressure or influence on the folks that I've been dealing with to try to get them to go ahead and move forward with crosswalks and who knows, potentially, a landing pad, right? And then they could put some signaling in place, but then you connect, so that's a start, right? So you could then you just need something.
Even
on the
better,
outside.
get the state to do it.
Right. But
That would-
they're
that would be
not
great.
gonna do it because there isn't sufficient data to warrant that. So this is where we need to engage the businesses.
Yeah.
Cameron's, for example, new owners, they've been very, they're looking to do more in town. Could they potentially put in a sidewalk in front of this or connecting to the corner, right? And then that provides another crosswalk to Borough potentially. And Borough is interested in sidewalks. So that's a start. You start with one, you're putting in a sidewalk. That could be the start for something.
Yeah,
that
you need
will
need
cover
that germ
intersection.
to
Right.
build off of, and
Right.
once you build, you get a kind of momentum there. And the visuals start to come into place. It also is a psychological signal to the cars. Oh, I'm coming through, a town area, and
but the
not
thing
everybody,
is-
but
And I
hopefully
think
most
Rich, you
people.
had the
slow
idea
down.
of taking that sidewalk to Michelle Estates, which, I drove by. So there's a small piece there that, they would be responsible for. And hopefully we get buy-in from them to connect to the path that exists today in front of the high school in the field, right? There's a way to walk across almost to Orchard Square.
Mary wanted to say something.
I just want our citizens to be safe. It's really, people barrel through and they don't pay attention to the traffic laws or the signals, and you have to be careful. People should drive the speed limit and obey the stop signs. And it's having been a pedestrian in this town since 2003. it can be a scary thing. And people shouldn't have to jump on top of a rock in their own neighborhood to get out of the way of someone possibly from another state not paying attention to the law. It's important that we do this right, but I think if we delay it another 2 or 3 years, then nothing's going to happen. I trust the judgment of the voters of Lewisboro. If we put this up, then the people of Lewisboro can vote on it, yes or no, and then we take it from there. It doesn't mean that we're borrowing it right now. We're just getting the things ready. I was trying to avoid saying ducks in a row because I say it all the time. But you know, we've obviously got some plans ready to go. And we're working on finishing the master plan, and that will be great for our grant applications in the future. But the bond offering is not that we're going to be borrowing right now and spending like we've won a $50 lottery ticket. It's a question of trying to make an investment in the future of Lewisboro.
And again, to revisit the pro-business aspect of this, by doing this now, as far as putting it subject to voter approval, businesses that may be contemplating to move into the hamlet centers. I know in Golden's Bridge, the video, how long has the video store not been there? Close to 20 years that we've had a vacant store. And maybe it sends the message not only for the existing business community, but somebody who's contemplating making a move, and also giving a message to the existing business community that we are concerned and want to do what we can to foster a positive business environment going forward.
Maybe get a bookstore in town. That would be really great.
Well, I don't think any of us are disagreeing on the vision. I think we all agree on vision. It's just a matter of the right way to get to the vision. And if there's going to be a referendum in November on whether or not to do this, I think that we should consider and putting roads, I'm talking state roads, I am talking like the idea of adjacent with sidewalks, but we're not just talking about sidewalks and crosswalks and things on the state roads at other places. But I think we need to incorporate roads in there so we can pave more roads sooner than later. And I think that if you include roads and increase the amount for the bond, that the likelihood of it passing in November would be increased.
May I ask a question, Jennifer? If we've already got it set up for $2.1 million, if we change it to add for the amount of roads,
9 miles, let's say.
You could issue a different bond.
Right, but I thought we were
Just to
trying
keep
to
it separate.
avoid not to have two things for people to vote on in November, and not to make it people feel like Mr. Travelino said earlier, either or, but that a fuller picture that perhaps that would also encourage people to vote.
I think it'd be good to know from the voters what they think about this as a standalone thing, because this is it's a bit of a diversion from what we have been doing over the years. And if we want to address roads, we can start that discussion, bring the highway superintendent in and, strategize a little bit and come up with what we want to do on that count.
We can always during budget. I mean, that's something that we can tackle as well.
We certainly should.
We have a specific road schedule for, I think, this season as well as for next.
I have a list. Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Did we get an answer to Mary's question?
so I didn't get a chance to ask it.
Yeah, go ahead.
If there, let me just take a breath. is it possible, I know we've already published this, is it too late to change this bond proposal to add money or add to the total dollar amount and add the question of paving roads within the town? Or,
That is gonna be a question for bond council.
okay,
Yeah, we basically, yeah.
That's all that. I don't know what the structure is, what it says, what the limitations are.
okay,
So, I know
it's all right,
You're
no,
gonna have the
Yeah.
available for questions, that would be a good question.
I think we have until the 24th.
Yes.
okay,
So if any
we
changes
can-
are made, it have to be done in the next couple of weeks.
That's why I thought.
But it needs to be voted on the 24th.
Okay,
That's why I thought it was it would be a good idea to have bond council here so that we could.
Well, they're
have these
available
questions.
to that, to answer
I'll
questions.
email
No,
you
but
tomorrow.
I like asking the questions in front of the public so that they can hear the answers as well. I mean, it's beneficial to me, that's great. But when the public gets to hear it and I get feedback, then I know how they feel as well. So that's why I liked the idea of having bond counsel here to ask questions such as this too. But I don't have anything to.
So
I never asked this question. So I know we have whatever 96 miles of roads in town.
including the
So,
dirt.
Something like that. How
No,
many?
no, it's not 88, it's 90, at least 92.
It's
So how many-
96, but that includes the dirt roads.
Okay, it's 96, right? That's okay. So how much of that is local roads? That total? So
It's all local roads.
The total, that
That's
category?
local, that's our responsibility.
Completely, okay.
I mean, we have not generally in my time here ever put the road bonds out in this fashion. This is the first time we've ever done a referendum of this sort. Normally, if we want a bond for roads, we decide how much we want. We put that up to a hearing. It's subject to a permissive referendum. And if
for the
it's not,
folks at home, the difference between what we're doing here and the permissive referendum is just that,
It doesn't go for a vote,
right?
to a vote,
right,
but it gives people the ability to collect signatures if they want to oppose it.
you know, I tend to think that this is more about, you know, being part of that public dialogue. You know, are we getting those signals? Are we reading those signals right that we've seen in the comments for the master plan and other places and the work that's going on along the way? So this is kind of verifying that, whereas the roads, you know, the roads we have to do, and it's just kind of a mechanics, like how are we going to fund these things? So I think it's less of a kind of a democracy issue at stake there.
You've been here longer than any of us, and I believe we've done that in the past for roads.
We
Yeah.
bonded for roads, yeah.
Yes.
And I have to say, I disagree with again, I'll just say with
You don't
bonding
like
for roads, just because I understand it's acceptable and the state control's office is fine with it, and, you know, a little bit of it is okay. But I know for a fact that when you do that, it kind of disappears into debt service land, and people lose the idea about how much it costs to maintain the roads. We've never had a consciousness of that because of the way we sort of do it in fits and starts. You need to have a budget. It's probably like, at this point, it's probably like $700,000 a year. And we need to plug the gap in the budget, which is there currently, which, you know.
So if we do conceptually, if we do both, if we bond, that allows us to jumpstart it and increase the maintenance. To do.
I mean,
That can be in the budget.
you know, you would treat bonding as catch up rather than sort of going forward in that case, you know, but.
There's 7 miles that are not paving.
Yeah, but as I say, I would recommend that it be a separate track, a separate discussion for that.
Okay. All right, so if there's anything else, we'll move on. So we have, next is public comment number 2. So anyone here would like to speak? Jennifer?
For glasses and spell I do that all the time.
I'm good at catching them. Jennifer Mayetta Staring, Cross River, New York. Just want to comment on the presentation that was just provided by Councilman Welsh. With all due respect, I appreciate the timeline that you provided. However, showing us that since 2010, nothing has happened doesn't give me much confidence in anything that's going to move forward right now. What I saw is not a master plan. What I saw was some ideas, some walkthroughs, some potentials, but there was absolutely nothing there that resulted in a master plan. My kudos to Councilwoman Rendo for actually standing up for the voters and saying this is not something that we should be voting on. I completely 100% agree. This is not something that you can vote on because there's nothing there. The one place that you have to have some serious insight to is the intersection of 35 and 121. Without a traffic study, you cannot assess whether or not you can put crosswalks there, whether or not the crosswalks are going to be effective. People blow through the traffic light. What makes you think that they're going to stop for a pedestrian? They don't stop for me in a car. So I'm very concerned that this is actually being considered as a master plan. It is not a master plan. It is not anything close to it. And I'm in the engineering business.
I'm not sure where you're getting the master plan,
Well,
like concept, like we weren't discussing a master plan.
this is not, well, if you're going to vote on something, you have to vote on something. And this is not something that you can vote on because there's nothing there. You have not presented any ideas, any renderings of any kind, any location specific. Every hamlet within our community deserves sidewalks. I've lived here for 27 years and I've waited for 27 years to see a sidewalk put in. And since 2010, you've been talking to people, but nobody's actually done anything. So until you actually have a plan to put sidewalks in, and I'm sorry, Supervisor Goncalves, I support you 110% in everything you do, but saying, I think maybe the cafe will put some in, maybe the wine store will put one in, maybe, Bocce will put another crosswalk in. That's not a plan. That's a pipe dream. That's not going to happen. I've seen autos create bike accidents. I've seen bikes create auto accidents all in that intersection. We started talking about bicycles. We started talking about crosswalks. I'm sorry if I'm not interesting you, Councilman Welsh. I am speaking to you as well.
Taking notes about what you're saying.
Speed limits need to be addressed. People drive through those intersections. 18-wheelers come through those intersections at 45 miles an hour. You're going to put a crosswalk there? I mean, you're going to get people killed. If you do it backwards, people are going to end up getting killed. It's a bigger safety issue if you do it backwards. There needs to be designs. You need to talk about shared roadways. You need to talk about roadway maintenance. Route 35, the S-turn, right over there at that intersection. I don't know when the last time it's been paved, but it wasn't paved since I've lived here, and it's been 26 years. The S-turn on Route 35, where we have all the crashes. There are two S-turns. Both of them need to be paved. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to look at which intersections, which crosswalks are the most necessary for safety. We have schools that need crosswalks. The high school is the most critical because it's an off-campus, on-campus situation. People can walk off campus and go anywhere they want. So you need to make that a priority. You need to have the right crosswalks in the right places. But as I stated in my first comments, the roads back up. The people are running the traffic lights. People are making U-turns in private roads. People are jumping in and out of the gas station to try and avoid the traffic lights. You have to fix the roads before you can actually put crosswalks in. So Councilwoman Rendo is absolutely correct. You can't put this to vote in November, and I'll object to it if you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, Glenn.
Glenn DeFaber, Cross River. I've lived here 40 years. And I don't know many people that moved to Lewisboro to walk, but I like the concept. I love the dream, but you're going to put a vote up for a dream. Why don't you do what a homeowner would do? I have a project. I know what it's going to cost, and I get a mortgage or I borrow. It seems that Lewisboro always does things ass backward. I think the playground, the town park is beautiful. That wasn't going to cost a penny to taxpayers, but it ended up costing twice as much as what it was proposed. We did a pool a number of years ago. The supervisor at that time wanted to buy the Leon Levy Preserve, but he needed to fix the pool. So what did we do? We got a pool contractor that didn't have a bond, and we ended up suing him. We fixed this building. It came in double of what it was going to cost. You guys I think you try your best, but to not tell the people exactly what you're going to spend the money on. Dan talks about the money just walking away. This is where it's going to walk away, or it's going to reward certain groups of people that are politically expedient for certain people on this board. Why don't you treat us all equal? So you tell us what you're going to do. Don't just tell us we're going to have sidewalks, so everybody in town is going to hope, oh, I'm going to get a sidewalk. No, if they're going to get it in Cross River, you tell them they're going to get it in Cross River. They're not going to get it in Vista. Maybe those people in Vista are not going to vote for it, but you won't do that. You'll just say sidewalks, this is what we're going to spend on it, but we don't know when we're going to spend it. But you're giving us the authorization to spend it, and then you just spend it, and we can't do anything. Another thing to consider, all these businesses that it's going to benefit, why don't you have them form a business improvement district? Why don't the people in Vista? They have a really great plan. I think it's great. If it's going to benefit them, have them pay for it, just like they do in New York City. Business Improvement District, Cross River, Golden's Bridge. This way, people in Walkabuck that'll never walk to it, they don't pay for it. Simple as that. Don't promise everybody pie in the sky, because that presentation was beautiful. But as Dan said, you've spoken to the state, they've turned it down. So I don't understand why we're going to show our effort by borrowing $2 million for what? Another thing, 2 of our state representatives live in Lewisboro. One lives on 123. Why aren't we getting them involved? They're taxpayers here. Why don't we leverage that? I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, well, let's get them. I like Chris. Thank you.
Anybody else here? No, how about on Zoom?
Yes. Dean Travelino, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just want to add one thought to what I said earlier, which I hope you'll agree is common sense. Any person, adult, child, who is going to use the sidewalk in any of those locations, and they all look like great ideas, like everyone else thinks, they're going to have to get there on a local town road. And when they ride on those local town roads, as I think even Dan admitted he's heard from his friends, in any of these subdivisions in wherever, Indian Hill or someplace, the edges of the roads and on Main Street are extremely dangerous. At that same town board meeting where Peter Rippinger mentioned the need to pave more roads, I mentioned how for me, in a wheelchair, I don't do that anymore, go out on the open road because of the potholes. So it's great to have sidewalks, but any child or adult who uses a sidewalk is going to have to get there, and they're going to have to do that going over town roads. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Carol Sternak, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Carol Cernak, Farvey Farm, South Salem, New York. I've lived here for 45 years. And I can't help but thinking that this sidewalk bicycle path thing has to do with votes, as 3 of our town board members are up for re-election. And you seem to be heavily promoting this and also standing up for your own boroughs of Lewisboro. So that concerns me. I'd also like to know who prepared the pedestrian and bike presentation that was given tonight. And why would somebody put that much effort into something that's like a pipe dream? I mean, if you're going to come to the meeting, maybe you should put a construction hat on and learn about infrastructure and planning rather than putting a unicorn on your head. If you apply for a bond to do all this work without any of this planning, does it affect our credit standing and our interest rates for future borrowing? What if we have an emergency and we need to borrow money? Is that money like labeled something and it's against our rating? How much money is needed for fixing all of the existing town roads? How much money is needed? You're talking about $2 million to do a bike path. It's a pipe dream. You're probably talking millions and millions and millions of dollars to fix all the roads in Lewisboro. If you're talking about infrastructure and building community appeal, nobody wants to live anywhere where you get a freaking bent rim or a dead tire because you're driving on a road that hasn't been paved. The other thing is, today I was in Cross River and I witnessed two people jaywalking against the lights at the intersection of 35 and 121. So how do you explain that? And not to mention the bicycles that don't follow the laws and the rules of the town, of the roads. I mean, how many times have people gotten into almost accidents because of a bicyclist who thinks they own the road? How many people have been critically injured on our state roads over the past 20 years, 30 years? Is there a study on that? Why would you want a cross path across that road? No, but if they're not going to stop for you when you're in need, they're not going to stop for you when you need to get to the other side. Just enforce the laws as they exist. You know, this is just not realistic. If you want to invest in the town of Lewisboro, stop the school taxes and bonds, make it livable for everybody in all classes. This is the problem with where we live. We're dictating to the elite and the rich, and that's not what Lewisboro was founded on. Poor people who came here because the land was not farmable. And the other thing, if you're going to put your construction hat on, don't fix the foundation before you fix your roof.
Thanks, Carol. Anybody else, John?
Yes, we have Barbara Mangione. I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me, Janet?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just want to say one last thing, and I apologize because this is not the type of thing I would usually say, because I have a lot of respect for everybody on the board, but I am extremely disappointed, and I find it mind-boggling that the majority of the board thinks this is a good idea to do right now, as Andrea mentioned. Every single budget season that I have watched for many, many years, there has been nothing but looking into every little spot as to where we can get $100 here or there to cover important costs. And now we want to put this out there. We may not use it now, but we have it there when there are just way too many things that need to be done in this town. And again, going back to the fact that most of the presentation was focusing on state roads. We are letting the state get away with making improvements, and we're taking financial responsibility for that. And that is just so wrong. Rich, you mentioned attracting businesses to Hamlet centers. The biggest reason we don't have businesses in in our Hamlet Center and Golden's Bridge is because it was always so poorly managed by the previous property manager, not because of a crosswalk. I spoke to many, many, many owners over the years that I've been here, which is 31 years, and everybody said it was a poorly managed facility and the rents were too high. So it's not, you can't just say it's crosswalks, it's safety, and it kind of goes into the fact that something that Carol alluded to, and I do have to agree with her, is it's an election year. So the same reason as to why this is such a rush to be put on for this ballot. I'm sorry, I sound cynical, but I know a lot about politics, have another life. It's an election year. It's a good thing to push forward, to get done. It bodes very well for people who are running. And it's the same reason why the ethics thing hasn't been discussed. It's an election year. It's a good thing to push that off for another couple of years. Thank you very much and have a nice night.
All right, thank you, Barbara. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next we have approval of claims. But motion, we approve claims,
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, polling of the board. Start with Mary.
There are open spots to volunteer on the various councils, advisory councils of the town of Lewisboro, and we would hope that you would look at the resources tab on the website of lewisborogov.com to find out what opportunities are available. Please submit your interest as well as your resume to let us know that you can help us fill the spots, because it's the people of Lewisboro that make a difference. And the another way you can help is by volunteering at the library fair. Donation days are coming up in August, and it's the perfect time to clear out your formerly loved items from your collection at home, so you can donate them as long as they're gently used and clean. And look at the website of lewisborolibrary.org to see the list of what's acceptable for donation and what isn't. So thank you.
Andrew.
Couple things. The ethics code. Mary got back to me. I again was expecting it to be on tonight's agenda. Wasn't. I still haven't received feedback from 3 of the board members. I received an email from Mary. I would suggest that you look at Article 18 of the General Municipal Law to see what the recommended outline is for a municipal code of ethics. I know that I provided one of the last meetings a copy of the draft that Greg Fischetti and I came up with. Again, it's just a draft with ideas, which had mentioned, you know, what's the standard that an ethics committee will be held to when they're taking and listening to inquiries. And there was some things that we touched on, but again, it's just a draft. So some stuff is in there. I haven't received commentary back about what any of you, except for Mary, thinks might work or not work. I took the privilege of printing out the model code of ethics from the Office of the State Comptroller. I'm handing it out to everybody. You don't have to agree with everything in the model code. I certainly don't, but it's a starting point. Then you can take this and compare it to what the draft is. And again, I think one of the major points that we touched on is that our code of ethics, and many towns are the same, do not provide an avenue for residents to file inquiries to get an opinion. For the most part, municipal ethics boards will handle inquiries made by employees or at the direction of the town board for advisory opinions. So that's something for us to discuss. But I know that during the time leading up to me taking office, that many residents had indicated that they would like there to be an avenue in town where they too could make an inquiry into things. So I would ask that that you all look at that and that this be placed on the agenda for the next meeting, please, for discussion. And as far as the Baccio restaurant and their acquisition of the property across the street, I know prior to this board voting to change our zoning code to allow for them to pursue their application for parking on that particular parcel, that I myself took a Saturday afternoon and went door to door up and down Jennifer's Road, knocked on doors to try to find out how the residents felt about it before I rendered my vote. And I know that residents will have the opportunity to be heard when they receive notice from the planning board regarding that particular application. And I would hope that they take advantage and go there and tell the planning board what they would like to see if these parking spaces, when these parking spaces go in, what they would like to see, what they would not like to see, and have their voices heard in that venue. And her voice was heard loud and clear this evening.
Rich?
Just wanted to take a moment to understand that Jerome Kerner either did or was about to step down from the planning board, long-term resident. Just wanted to say to be that's a California-based opponent, so opposed to just wanted to congratulate Jerome on his and thank him for his many years of service. Had the good fortune to serve with him when he was chair of the planning board as well as a colleague. He was really terrific person to work with, great temperament, and taught me a lot about that when I first came on. And the community will miss his service and commitment to town of Lewisboro.
Yeah.
Let's see. First of all, I agree with you on that. Having people pay attention to the planning board proceedings for that lot. That's their opportunity to make sure it's done right. Just on the general, we got a lot of comments from people who are very concerned about this process for this bond referendum. Some people suggesting that it's just not the way to go, that you need to have all your plans, and that's not the case. You can certainly allocate a budget for doing this type of work and then work into the details. There's nothing wrong with that, and we've done similar things in the past. If you decide to do $6 million for roads, you're not identifying every stretch of road, and you don't have all the costs because you don't know that maybe there's going to be some drainage somewhere or whatever. So there's nothing wrong with doing it this way. There's also some comments about it being political and rushed. We started to talk about this last year. We missed the electoral schedule, so we weren't able to do it last year. And we've been, working on this for a while this year. And I guess it's political. You put it to the voters and they vote, right? So that's kind of politics. I heard somebody say, that Andrea was protecting the voters, I guess, by not letting them vote on it. So I kind of don't get that either. Let them make their decision on it, and I think we'll find out then. If they think it's such a terrible idea, it'll be voted down. I'll get voted out, and whatever. So I say let's give that a shot.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So yeah, we talked a bit about paving. I figured I'd give an update as to this summer's paving we have, and we're starting this week. The following of the roads that are being paved: Sabbath Day Hill, Pine Hill Drive, Fountainville Road, Hunts Lane, Howland Drive, Adams Hill Road, Debbie Lane, Old Shop Road, Southwind Drive. So those are the roads that are being paved starting this week. And I'll post this list on the highway webpage.
We had some road closure notifications too, so.
Yes. Regarding paving on Route 35, the state road. So the state we're going to start this summer. It was going to be nighttime paving, and which of course is less of an impact, to commuters and everyone that uses that road, which is a major east-west route through the county. Unfortunately, they were not able to get bids for nighttime paving. So the option was we could pave in the daytime, or we could shift it out to next year, pave it at night. Pave it in daytime would be a nightmare to the town. So I've had a couple of discussions with the regional director, and we are going to have it paved at night next year. And I'm trying to get them to do more paving. So there's a possibility with new budgets of getting Route 35 paved even further east.
Okay.
And hopefully if they can squeeze in some other improvements. We talked about crosswalks in that intersection. I know a lot of people, well, Jennifer had a concern about safety. Someone said somebody was jaywalking. Well, if they had crosswalks, they probably wouldn't jaywalk. And if there were safety signaling in place, it would bring it to the attention of the drivers and hopefully they'll slow down. It's not the first state road that has crosswalks. There's many in the area, Bedford, Mount Ridge, Katona. But hopefully we'll get some more out of that project. So I'm pushing real hard, and with the help of our state legislators, hopefully we'll get a little bit more than what we were supposed to get this year from New York State DOT. So that's that. As far as the ethics committee, so we have, just to be clear, we do have 2 members, and I don't know if the board has spoken to the existing 2 members yet.
Yes.
Have you? Andrew?
No, I spoke
I think you
to
should.
the chair a while ago,
I think,
and then
yeah,
I'm pretty sure another member resigned.
there are 2 members, and they're still involved. They shared with me examples of stuff that has been brought to their attention in the past. So I think some of the things that you're concerned about, Andrea, do work under the current code. But it's an opportunity, I had a great discussion with both of them. In fact, one of them was when we had the Vista Fire Department,
Hosted dinner.
hostel dinner, that's what it was, yeah.
So let's
There.
bring them in. Why don't we have the
bring
discussion
them in.
together?
Yeah, bring them in next week. I mean, next
Next
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah. But I think
That'd be
I
great.
learned a lot from talking to them about this.
But the last time they really were involved was somewhere over 20 years ago.
Right, because unless the case is brought up to them, they're not going to be involved. So, but they shared with me like 3 different cases. It was a good discussion, and I'll have them come in and have that discussion at the next meeting. The other thing I had was, so sticking with highway issues. So we had 2 retirements from highway. Mark Senna, our mechanic, retired after 37 years. So I'd like to congratulate Mark on his retirement and his years of service with the town of Lewisboro.
Thank you, Mark.
And also Dwayne Fairnaz, 29 years. So these were 2 employees that have dedicated a lot of time and many years to the town of Lewisboro. So thank you both very much. And we do have 2 new hires that will be taken over their spot. Actually, one is moving into the mechanic spot, an existing employee. Then we have 2 others that are being hired. And again, back to that $1.4 million grant. Again, this was, when I took that item out of the budget, we crossed our fingers, we applied for the grant, and we received it. So again, kudos to everyone involved. It was a major undertaking, and we got it done. And I think we need to keep at it, with these grants. There's a lot of grant opportunities out there, and hopefully we'll get more grants for some of these improvements, pedestrian and bicycle safety. As well as others.
Other infrastructure
Right.
issues.
Yeah,
like at the
yeah.
town park.
This was a major one because that Escalita culvert, not that it was compromised, but it needed to be replaced. And
It's getting there.
it was getting there. Yeah. So we'll kick that off fairly soon. So, and that is all I have.
It's time to open.
So the next town board meeting is Monday, July 24th, 2023 at 7:30 PM here at the townhouse. Motion to adjourn. No executive session.
Oh.
I have 2 items for executive session with personnel to talk to you about.
Okay.
Move, we go into executive session then.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone on Zoom and everyone here. Thank you.
Oh, turn your-